Hi, this is Ari Kopel, and I'm here with Shattering the Matrix. I have my beautiful friend from many, many lifetimes, Atona Arrayas, with us, and we're going to be speaking more in depth about all her experiences and her basically walking in through the magic of the Illumined Worlds. And this is part 2 of Walking Between Realities, and that is exactly what Atona does. And so we're going to continue off with the where we left off, which was a really wonderful event that she was setting up. And before we do that, for any of the listeners that have not listened to part 1, I really, really encourage all of you to do that, because it would make more sense than if you were to start listening now. The background story of how this is leading up to where we start today is very, very important. And that is the way that this whole series will unfold, is that it does, one episode does lead to the other, and if you start in the middle, you might get lost. So I do encourage all of those that have not heard part 1 to do so now. And if you have, then this is the continuation of that. Anyway, Atona, welcome with us today, this wonderful evening for part 2.
Hi.
Hi.
It's nice to speak with you again, and hello to all of your listeners.
Sure.
And to the students that I work with.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do, Atona, is we're going to pick up where we left off, which was, as you know, I was really, really interested in you going in depth into that whole process of what happened with the sound and all of that, because when you've told me these stories, and mind you, I've heard these stories so many times, I know them by memory as if I had experienced them myself. and the funny part is that the reason that I get so giddy when I hear them is because I've experienced things that are similar in many, different ways, but similar. So when I hear them, it's just a confirmation for me of the magic that happens when these beings of light, come into our life and into our world, and just bless us this way. So that's the reason I get all giddy, right? But so if you could go ahead and start wherever you feel that is the next step. But I'd love for you at some point to touch upon how that whole sound thing happened with the event.
Okay. So, in actuality, that is later on, but I can talk about it now.
Okay.
For those that are just tuning in, I did an event at the Los Angeles Coliseum called Starlink 88, and what I'm doing right now is relating some of the experiences that I had that led up to the event, and then I'll speak about the event, and then my journey after the event all the way up to current times, and how some of the things that happened in my meetings gave me knowledge prior to this time frame, what I could expect in the future. And we're walking into that time frame now, and hopefully what I'm doing will give your listeners an understanding from a totally different perspective of what we are currently experiencing in the world in our current events.
Fantastic. That's exactly what we need to hear, Atona.
So the magic of what Ari is talking about is close to the event. Within weeks, probably within a week of the event, we had a gentleman that we had been working with who was going to be funding the last part of the event. And we were in contact with him almost on a daily basis. And then all of a sudden, we couldn't connect with him. It was very, very odd. We tried phoning him numerous times. He didn't contact us. And so there was a big question mark, what was going on here? Now we're going to go back just a little bit. as I told you, I was receiving telepathic communication. But as I continued with this communication, I had another series of events that took place that gave me much greater depth in my ability to connect with the beings that I was working with.
Fantastic, yeah. Let's hear that.
Yeah. And I never divulged, other than to say the Ashtar command, the actual names of the beings that I was working with. No one knew that except me. And so I want you to keep that in mind, because it's very important, the context that I'm going to be going into in the future, as well as what I'm going to be telling you about this particular incident. So I got a phone call, and I always answered the phone when I was available, because it meant to the other person that whatever guidance they had been given to make that connection was accurate. And so whenever I was in the space where we were receiving the information, I would always answer the phone. I got a phone call from a gentleman who said that he had been prompted to contact me directly, and he had been prompted by Monka. Monka was a being from the Ashtar Command, and I was working directly with Monka in the very, very early stages of the telepathic communication that I was receiving. It was Monka that was communicating with me. By this time, I had shifted my communication. Monka had given me a visualization to use that would set up an energy field around me. And when that energy field was set up, they would step in, whoever was going to be communicating to me. And at the point that I had learned that, I would receive Ashtar himself into my energy field. And there was a very definite energy field set up. You could feel it, although no one else knew it, because I was not divulging what that was, the visualization that was given to me. So Monka was someone that was communicating with others, and that's how I knew that this man was legitimate. And he asked me to come to Phoenix, Arizona. And this was prior to what I just divulged about the gentleman who was funding the last part of the what we needed for the event.
Right.
So I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I went to the address that he gave me. It was in a shopping mall. It was on the second floor of the shopping mall. And I remember it very, very clearly. I went up an escalator, and it was to my left. And just a little ways down the hall, there was a door. And it had a sign on it that I can't recall now. But that's the name that I was given to knock on that door. And that's what I did. And he opened the door, and I walked in to an amazing place. I'd never seen anything like this. And as you know, Ari, this was so astounding to me. There were what looked like computer equipment that generated all kinds of imagery. He had a huge screen in there, and he played. He showed me. He played with the screen and the images on the screen, and essentially he said that he wanted to help with the event.
Okay, let me stop you right there now. And I got the little feedback coming back from myself. Could you put the speaker in a different position or something, by any chance? Is that possible?
No.
Okay.
It's inside the computer.
All right. So it's not an outside. Okay. We'll try communicating here. Okay. I just wanted to remind everyone that this is 87?
That's right.
All right.
1987.
1987. That kind of technology, at least for the public, was not readily available.
That's right.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to clarify is, of course, when you're going up the escalator to this shopping mall, and you go up to the top, the top floor, second floor.
Yeah.
You're making a left, and is that the first door that you encounter to the right, or is there several doors that you pass?
No, in actuality, there was like a storefront when you came off. The escalator was not right up against the stores. It was a distance away, and so there were stores in front of the escalator, but when I made my turn to the left and headed down there was a door.
Okay.
And that's where I went. I went right to that door.
Okay.
So it never gave me, I didn't have any thought about it wasn't a storefront. It was a door. So, it didn't have glass on it. It was a door.
A solid door.
Yes, and that's what he had told me. So I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, well, that's the way they constructed whatever is in the building.
Right. Yeah. So. Okay. So now you're, and then the other thing I wanted to do a little sidebar there with you is for those people that don't know who Manka is, which is very, very important to let people know who Manka is. Can you describe his position?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's go, and now you're inside the room, and you're looking at all this technology. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, and this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, and at that time, like what you said, it was another world walking in there, because computers were not like they are now, and these computers that I was looking at and the type of equipment you wouldn't find anywhere that I would have had access to anyway.
Right.
So, but who knew that? All I knew was this was an amazing place, and so. We talked a while. He let me play with the equipment some, making changes on the screens and stuff like that. And then we went downstairs. There was a Mexican restaurant that was downstairs. It was right next to the entranceway into the mall. And so we had lunch there, and then I left and went back to Los Angeles.
Okay.
Now, let me just take 1 second here just to remember the sequence of events that took place after that. Okay. So, now, I don't know how he's going to fit into what we're doing, because we're still dealing with the Coliseum and the lighting, and everything is usually the employees that are Coliseum employees, and they are all in a local union. So you're supposed to use those people.
Right.
So I don't know how this is all going to fit in, but I'm not really giving that much thought. Doing what's in front of me to do. So now we're back to that time where we're just about a week away, and we can't get a hold of our major funder. And I don't know how what's going to happen is going to happen. So I get another phone call, and it's from him, and he asks me to meet him. And I do, and I meet him, and essentially he tells me he's with two other men.
Oh, okay.
So there are three of them, and I meet them in a hotel room, and in a hotel room in Los Angeles.
Huh.
And he tells me that the gentleman that we were getting our funds from was leading us down the wrong path.
Huh.
Well, this takes me back. One, because he did not have access to that information.
Right.
Okay. Two, I was surprised he knew what the man's name was. He knew where his office was. And what he told me is, you could think of us as your motorcycle crew. That's what he said. He said he was leading you down the wrong road, and we told him to go away, basically.
Oh, boy.
And not to worry about anything else. Everything else was being arranged, and exactly that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happened is the Coliseum actually allowed us to do the event ourselves without the use of their unionized people. That meant that all of the volunteers that had come together were the ones that orchestrated everything.
Huh.
And he and those three men, they set up all of the staging. I never asked them where they got it from. I had no clue. All I knew was that was being taken care of. And it was a full stage, beautifully set up, full lighting, because we went into the night, so we had night lighting on that stage.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it went in after 10 o'clock at night, the event. And music, the sound equipment, it was all there. And Lembal, who you will hear a little bit more about later on, she worked with them. They organized who would go up on the stage first. They had it all together. It was amazing.
Wow. So these are the people that you got that mysterious phone call from, and now they're setting up the whole thing.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
They're setting up the whole thing. So they set up the entire event in terms of the lighting and the music, and there were the performers that had come, but they all came from the guidance that we were given. So there wasn't anyone at that event that had not been guided to the event. And one of the most extraordinary and beautiful things about this event was the people that attended the event were so different in their lives. I remember at one point looking at the photographs of the people, because there were people taking photographs of the people in the audience and what was happening on the stage. In fact, the whole thing was actually videotaped. There were two women they were elderly women, and they had those babushkas on their heads.
Yeah.
And those two women actually had contacted me by letter after the event, and basically told me that they had been told about this event when they were little girls.
Wow, get a load of that.
Yeah, and I actually have, I think somewhere I still have their pictures in storage somewhere.
Amazing.
But to continue with the magic of these men.
Right.
It was after the event, I wanted to connect with them because they were really fantastic guys. And so I decided I was going to go to Phoenix and see them, see the guy that was in that building. So I left Los Angeles and I headed to Phoenix, and I got there fairly early in the day, probably around just before noon, because I wanted to take him to lunch And I went up the escalator, and I went looking for that door, and I could not find it.
Mm-hmm.
I went all over the mall there, not only on the second floor, because I couldn't believe that it wasn't there anymore. I went on the first floor thinking I must have, maybe I forgot, and it was really on the first floor. It was definitely the same mall because the restaurant was still there that we had eaten in. I went up and down looking for, I couldn't find it, so I went to the security guard at the mall and I asked where that place was. And he looked me square in the face and he said, "We never had a place like that here."
So you walked into the Twilight Zone, apparently.
Yeah, I was the Twilight Zone, for sure. I've never had any contact with them since.
Uh-huh.
And it simply was another experience of what is possible.
Yes, absolutely. And just as an aside, for people who don't know Manka, I'm going to let everyone know that Manka is in charge of communications for the Ashtar Command. So that's why you were being communicated by Manka. So yeah. So anyway, so the next that to me is such an amazing story. Because it's again almost like you walked into the Twilight Zone, or it was a la Mission Impossible. You know how they usually set up the stage, and then the next thing you know, their mission is done. They pack up and they leave.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
I had, no understanding that was even possible. That in actuality, that you could literally walk into another reality and try and go back to it and discover that that's what you did. You walked into another reality, and it did not exist in this reality.
Exactly.
It was a temporary situation that you experienced there.
Wow.
Well, it's not the only one.
Yes, and we're going to
ask me to talk about another one, and I'm going to talk about it.
Let's do it.
I had so much communication going on inside my head because I was doing talk shows. I did a television interview. I did radio interviews. I flew to Texas and I did a number of radio shows in Texas. And I was really overshadowed and given communication. Here. So I'm going to give you two. Okay. One of the ones that I went to right around the same time, and I hope that this gives you a greater understanding of what is possible, audience. I went to a group of 5 women in Texas, and they had a metaphysical school as well as a bookstore. And I had done a radio program in, I think it was called Ashland, Texas. And then I went on to Houston, Texas, where these women had invited me to speak. So I did that radio program, and after the radio program, it was announced where I would be so that people could gather. And so I went to the metaphysical store, and there was a whole group of people that had come having listened to the radio program. And they had a stage in their school. And so I got up and I gave a conversation and talked about what my experiences were up to that point and opened for questions. And then I got a communication. And the communication was, ask if anybody would like to see how we can connect with them. And so, and if they are interested in having an experience of this, acknowledge it internally. Don't say it out loud. Acknowledge it internally.
Okay, let me stop you right there. The communication that you received was from the command?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I said this to them, and we took a break. When we came back from the break, remember, I had no idea what they were going to do, meaning the command. I didn't know beforehand. So I was just as astounded and amazed at what was happening as everyone else was. So when I got up on the stage, they told me that what they wanted us to do was a continuous Om. And so that's what we started. The group of people that were there, we all stood, and we started doing a continuous Om. And this was tape recorded. They actually tape recorded this.
Wow.
And you hear all these out-of-tune human voices oming.
Uh-huh.
And we did this continuous Om, and all of a sudden, there's this transformation that takes place, and the most beautiful angelic voices sang out through us.
Huh.
It was extraordinary. There was not a dry eye in the audience. They all experienced it coming through their own voice.
Wow.
And you could hear the change in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the end of it for all of us. I mean, I couldn't even speak anymore after that. It was so moving and so incredible.
Yep. Transformational, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh. All right, and then you have now you spoke about, and I don't know if you're going to go into this is the second story you're going to tell, but if it's not, then hold on to that.
Yes, it is.
It is. Go ahead. Okay, go right ahead then. All right.
All right. So, and I'm not sure exactly what the time frame is on this, so I'm just going to tell you the story. Mm-hmm. I can't put it in context to it just happened after this or it was before this. I'm pretty sure it was before this because the demand on me to make these public appearances became greater, and it was more difficult for me because it was a lot of appearances and a lot of dialogue happening on people asking me questions and then my getting immediate answers, because the answers were not coming from me. They were coming from what I was hearing. And so it was like constant dialogue going on. Mm-hmm. And so at one point it just had gotten to be a bit much for me, and I asked for help. And I basically said, look, I can't do this anymore with all of the communication coming into my head. I need to have visual that I'm not just blown
or imagining
in this imaginary world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I want to see you, and not only do I want to see you, I want you to answer the questions I have without me speaking them out of my mouth, so that I know that who I'm seeing is real. So I was like really, really needing to have confirmation other than just the sound, and visual was what I was asking for.
Okay.
And I got a communication to go to a specific hotel in Los Angeles and to a specific room, which I did. And there were, I think, 4 other people that also went. But there were 3 that there were little chairs set up in this room. And we walked in. The 4 people that walked in sat in chairs, and to tell you the truth, I don't know if those people were part of who was the command or not.
Right.
All I know is that the 3 that I was looking at definitely were, because they showed themselves to me. So you're looking at what looks like human beings, and the next thing, it's like what was revealed was came through the flesh.
Okay.
They were not. They were beautiful and etheric looking. And they answered my questions, but they did not answer it with me having to speak them. That was the last time that I needed any confirmation on what was happening. But that leads me to the very, very significant one that I wanted to talk to you about that happened, and that was with Sister Thedra.
Oh, yes.
And my journey to Mount Shasta.
Oh, yes.
And Solara. And I had been sitting with a group of people, and they were accustomed to me leaving on the spur of the moment. If I received a communication, I followed it immediately. And I had been sitting at a table with them, and I received a communication, and I wrote down a phone number that I had been given. And right then and there, I picked up the phone, and I made the call. I dialed that number, and a woman answered the phone. And she said, "I've been waiting for your call." You know, with all the magic, you have to understand that was still mind-boggling to me.
Oh, it is. So they gave you the phone number.
Yes.
The command.
They gave me the phone number. I did not have this phone number. I didn't know who was on the other end of the phone. And when I was talking to her, I still didn't know who she was. I didn't know.
Okay.
She had told me she was Sister Thedra, but I had no knowledge of who Sister Thedra was.
Okay.
I was told that she was up on Mount Shasta. She told me I live up on Mount Shasta. And at that time, she was the founder of an association that was quite famous at that time. I didn't know it because I did not travel in those circles. She was the founder of the Sanat Kamara. It was actually, I believe, called Sananda Sanat Kamara Association. And it was founded up in Mount Shasta, at Mount Shasta. So my journey up there was immediate because I was told I was to go see her. So not only was I to go see her, but I was also to go see another woman, and I was given this other woman's phone number also. Again, not knowing who she was, and the people who were with me at the time witnessed my getting phone numbers and making phone calls, and all this kind of stuff was always witnessed by people. And and this woman's name was Solara. Again, I had no idea who Solara was. And just so your audience knows, Solara was the author of quite a number of very popular books back then. She wrote The Starborn, I believe The Legends of Altazar, Elon Ra. No, those are some of the books that she wrote. She was also the woman that did the 11/11 event. That came after the Starlink event, by the way, 11/11.
Okay.
So anyway, I made contact with her. I told her about the fact that I was going to be doing this event and I would like to come and see her, that I had been directed to make a connection with her. So she was happy to receive me up at Mount Shasta, so I left right away. And I didn't take anything but the clothes on my back, and I headed up from Los Angeles to Mount Shasta. And I stayed with Sister Thedra through the night. And it was one of the most magical nights. Sister Thedra was in her 80s at the time, and she was a little person. And, but she had the most gorgeous, big, dark eyes, and she was very animated. Well, just to give you a little bit more information about who this woman is, and you can go online and check her out. She crossed over. She has since crossed over, but there's still information about her, I'm sure. But Sister Thedra was actually on her deathbed, and she had gone to the Yucatan. This is where she had chosen because she had been informed that she had terminal cancer. And so she wanted to have her final resting place down in the Yucatan. And so she had gone there, and she was literally on her deathbed when a miracle happened. And it's reported by many that the miracles continued to happen around her and with her.
Wow.
But this particular miracle was that Jesus, the Christ, appeared and did a spontaneous healing on her. And he said to her, "My name is Ishu Sananda Kamara." And for those of you that have heard the word Sananda, it is my understanding that this information, it belongs to others, because others know that Sananda is the name that is used cosmically for Jesus the Christ. But she was given that information by Sananda as she was given the spontaneous healing. And from there, Sananda sent her to a monastery that existed down in the Yucatan called the Monastery of the Seven Rays, where she reportedly experienced the wisdom of the Kumara wisdom, which is a very ancient wisdom of the Illumined Worlds. This information has been hidden from humanity and was only passed in the secret schools, and it was hidden to protect it until a specific time frame. And that specific time frame was prophesized, and that prophecy was held by the Mayans, that there would be, and it was in their hieroglyphics, I believe. That's what Jose Aguirre's actually deciphered. And so before I jump to that part, she was connected with a priest called Brother Phillips. And Brother Phillips had conscious memory of past lives. And he actually wrote books as well. I think there were two, Secret Places of the Lion and Secrets of the Andes. And in the past, he was responsible for giving information that was misleading to protect the information from not being disclosed until the appropriate time. And the appropriate time was in our generation.
Wow.
And it was during the time frame that I am talking about that these prophecies were to come forward. And they were the prophecies that the Mayan solar priests were to return to complete their mission here on Earth to help humanity. And that was the information that Jose Aguirre discovered with Humbotzman. And it was one of the main reasons for the harmonic convergence. People gathered in sacred sites, and these sacred sites were to be ignited. Mm-hmm. And the gatherings at these sacred sites were part of the igniting of the sacred sites. So the harmonic convergence was known about long before it actually took place. It is actually in her writings, her experience, that this information that the Mayan solar priests would return to Earth to help humanity through what we are walking through right now. And at that time, we, meaning Jose Arguelles and Hume Botsman and Sun Bear and Lynn Andrews and the people who were extremely active, Solara, Patty Cota-Robles, we were all part of those prophecies. And in my end, I worked with Hume Botsman, Lem Ball, who is an extraordinary woman. She was responsible for the Earthlink events, not the Earthlink, the Earth Day events. Okay. She and a gentleman from Canada initiated those first Earth Day events during this time frame that I'm talking about, right when Starlink and the Harmonic Convergence and Earthlink and 1111, all in that time frame. They were all linked together. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a video showing the ceremonies that were actually done down in the Yucatan by the people who were prophesied to come to the Yucatan. And I gave you that link. If you want, you can post it, and the people who are listening can go to it if you would really like to see the energy that was held and what was happening at that time to fulfill these prophecies.
Yes, absolutely. I will go ahead and, it's got the feedback. I will post it at the 2012emergence.com website, because that's the only place that I will be able to link it there. And then from there, people can take the link and then, of course, put it elsewhere. Unless if it is on YouTube, you can give me the title of that, and then I'll post that as well.
Yeah, I will get the title of it, and then you can, and it's wonderful because you really get to see the people that actually did these sacred ceremonies in the locations. And some of them were, they were all down in the Yucatan. Some of them were at the different pyramids, mm-hmm. And even underground in the caves that exist underground. We did ceremony down there. And it was not only the Mayans that were doing it. It was prophesied that whites from the north would come to the Yucatan, and we were the whites from the north that came. And you'll see the mixture of Mayans and us, northerners, and also the Aztec. And the Aztec are the dancers that you will see in the underground caves and stuff.
Now, the purpose of all this was to create an energy field, or to raise the vibration of humanity at that point. What was why so many of these events going on at the same time, almost at the same time?
Okay, well, it was very, very significant because what was happening is that these were ancient sacred sites that were being reactivated because people would be again drawn to these sites for initiations, mm-hmm. including Mount Shasta. And there have been initiations that have taken place in Mount Shasta.
Sure.
that leads us to another story.
Oh, yes, it does. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So, so so you're not at the Yucatan right now. You're still talking about. Now we're going to go right back to. We were talking about Sister Thedra, and so she gets healed, obviously, by Jesus the Christ, Sananda, right? And
yes.
And now you're back. Let's go back to Mount Shasta while you're with her.
Okay, well, first let me just give you a little bit more information, okay? Sister Thedra lived on Mount Shasta for 44 years, and she was known as the gatekeeper. She always knew when a conclave of light was going to happen in Mount Shasta. Notice I said in Mount Shasta.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Because there is an in Mount Shasta, and there are also etheric temples that exist in that area, as you know, Ari, because we've journeyed there together. Yes. So so she always knew when the conclaves of light would occur, and that means the Ashtar Command would be present, or the Ascended Masters, like Saint Germain. Or Master El Moya, who walked this planet as humans did. In fact, for those of you who would like to have a little bit deeper understanding, Master El Moya and Katumi actually have writings that are held in a very sacred vault in, I believe, the British Museum. And I have a very dear friend who actually was allowed to go to the museum, and they took her inside this glass weather-controlled vault and brought these writings to her. And she actually witnessed the writings of the handwritings of Katumi and Master Katumi and Master El Moya. So these ascended masters, like Saint Germain, actually spent time up on the mountain, meeting with people at that time. There's actually, I believe, a path that is famous on Mount Shasta for a meeting that Saint Germain had with, what was his name?
Guy Ballard, and that's Panther Meadows. Guy Ballard. Right. I think it's Panther Meadows, if I'm...
Panther Meadows, that's right, So these are locations that still... people are journeying to, and still are having interdimensional experiences with the masters, or being taken and allowed to experience the etheric temples. So she actually was the gatekeeper. She knew when any conclave was going on. She was actually followed because Jesus Sananda would appear to her in physical form, and it was not telepathic. He would appear, and people followed her because they wanted to see him. And and there were many magical stories that she confided in me that night. I can't possibly go into all of them because it would take a whole night.
That would be another episode. Right, I hear you. I was at her house, by the way, much later, of course, but the energy is still there.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. It was shortly after my trip, and shortly after the Starlink event actually took place, that Sister Thedra was released from her duties at Mount Shasta. And she was told to go to the Red Rocks and at that time, she didn't know what was meant by the red rocks, but she was led to Sedona, and that's where she spent the rest of her life.
Wow.
Was in Sedona, and I actually got to spend more time with her in Sedona.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a very, very special time for me. And so Sananda, her stories of Sananda were shared with me that night, and I had been receiving telepathic communication from Sananda.
While you were there, while you were at her house?
No, this is before.
Oh.
Not often, but every now and then it would be Sananda that would communicate something to me.
Wow.
And it was a very, very different energy. But because of what was happening and the level of functioning that was required of me, I was given extraordinary experiences to help me along my journey. And when those little moments of uncertainty would come in, I could always draw on what my experiences were.
Sure.
This experience with Sister Thedra was very profound for me because she was in her 80s at this point. Her stories were very profound stories, and if you met her, you could feel the truth in what she was conveying. So I have a great deal of reverence for these memories.
Yes.
Just give me a second.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So the next morning, she and I had some time together, and then it was time for me to leave and go meet Solara. And so we were walking out her living room to get to the exit when I started receiving telepathic communication. And she looked at me and she said, "Would you like a pen and paper?" But I had said nothing to her. So I said yes. Of course, I was very surprised. But I took the pen and a piece of paper and sat down on her sofa, and I started writing the communication down. And when I was finished, when the communication stopped, I looked up, and she had been writing also. And she took her pad and handed it to me. And I read her pad, and line for line, her in the old biblical wording, but line for line said exactly the same thing.
Wow.
That I had just written. So that was, for me,
your confirmation, I guess, huh?
Yeah. It was very, very, very sacred and extremely profound. That's why I was so moved that I couldn't speak about it right away.
Believe me, I know. And of course that was Sananda communicating with both of you.
It was Sananda.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I am as moved. Yeah. Okay, that's very, very wonderful. And then that was the last time that you spent time with her, or
up on Mount Shasta.
On Shasta,
that was the last time. Although I had numerous communications from Los Angeles, you couldn't just pick up the phone and call her. She had people that protected her privacy because she was so amazing. There were always people trying to connect with her, and that gets really hard. It gets really hard. So she had people that would be, answer her phone and, take messages and, things like that. And remember, she was in her 80s at this point.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
But whenever I called, it was always her that picked up the phone.
Right.
Always.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So then,
and whenever I was told to go see her, she was prepared and waiting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so then from that scene, at some point, then you contact Solara up there on Mount Shasta. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I had a blazer, and so I got in my blazer after I said my goodbyes. Oh, by the way, Sister Thedra gave me a gift that I still have. I have it in a very sacred and special place.
Uh-huh.
It was a beautiful, huge ring.
Oh. Interesting.
And I still have that ring.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was my birthstone.
Wow. Wow. Now, is it okay for me just to mention that she was at that time the person who carried Sananda's mantle? Is that okay to say?
Oh yes, she definitely was. Yes, she definitely was.
Okay.
So and you, I don't know if you remember my telling you that the day that Sister Thedra crossed over, anyone who was in contact with her knew. I knew immediately that had taken place.
Wow.
And the mantle that she carried was then passed. But not to one person. It was passed to a number of people. And it was passed at the moment of her passing. And each person was knew that the mantle had been passed to them. I will tell you that the fact that the mantle was passed did not mean that the person fully understood in that moment what that meant. But they did know that they had received that mantle and that passing.
Wow. Now, for the audience to understand, it's not a physical mantle, is it?
No.
Okay.
Although the experience is one of an energetic
transference.
Yeah, but like an energy. It's like an energy, like a mantle.
Yes.
Of energy.
Yes.
That was placed over our being, and that several of us were drawn together and discovered that the other had received that mantle.
Wow.
At the same time, in the same manner. And that's one of the most amazing things, and something I'd like to share with your audience, and that is that these events are synchronistic. In those moments that it occurs, you don't necessarily have full understanding of what it means. But it is linked synchronistically. And it is those synchronistic events that take place that bring you into greater initiation and greater mastery and greater understanding. That's very important to understand. The following of those synchronistic events in the happening in the present moment does not necessarily mean you will have a complete, full understanding. That's something you grow into.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not all the time. Sometimes you can get a gestalt of information, which means you get a full, comprehensive understanding, and then you live that out. Okay? We can go into that at a future time.
Sure.
When we start to go into some of the teachings.
Right.
Okay? But, so basically, where are we? Because I'm lost.
You lost? No. All right. So
I don't know yet. We're heading over to
we're going over to see Solara.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I didn't know who Solara was. All I knew was that, she was a very vibrant woman.
And a well-known author, right?
and a very well-known author and radio talk show host, and had spiritual gatherings and was very much involved in doing initiations based on her knowledge and her experiences. So I was very well received by her. I remember thinking she was a tall woman, much taller than myself, and so she had so much more experience than I did. I had a good deal of respect for who she was. I was very happy that she felt that what I was telling her was in fact true, and she felt the draw to be a part of the event. It wasn't something I was having to pull. She felt it and knew that she was to be a part of creating the event. And so I did not spend the night with her. It was only a few hours because I had been told that I was to spend the night on the mountain. I was unprepared for that. I didn't expect it because all I had was the clothes on my back. Mm-hmm. I couldn't camp. But she did give me a sleeping bag, and that would allow me to sleep in the back of my blazer. And so, not knowing anything about Mount Shasta, I took directions from her, and I headed up the mountain. And I found my first location. I went down. It was dark at this time, and I went down this road, and it was like a turnaround. I've since been back to that exact location a number of times, and right behind this location was a person's home, and I didn't even know it at that time that this woman lived there. But this woman, her name was Grace.
We tried to see her one time, remember?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I went with you.
Yeah.
We tried. She was away in Europe at the time. I believe she's still up there. I don't have any further information.
Yeah.
But everyone on Mount Shasta, meaning anyone that has been there, knows there's a small town there that's very sacred. There are bookstores and or just tell them about one of the places you visited.
One of the places that I visited on Mount Shasta, you mean?
Yeah, the Ballard's place.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story, all on its own. But there's a little motel up there. I'm trying to remember the name of the little town. It escapes me. But anyway, the motel where Guy Ballard was staying at the time that he actually went hiking on Panther Meadows, where Saint Germain actually met him. That little place, that building, is still there. And a friend of mine knew about it and, had me, told me about that place where Guy Ballard used to stay in. And so I go, oh my God, I've got to go see it. And so I went all the way over there, and of course I'm always with my camera. There was a huge, like an antique car display or fair or something going on. A lot of people on the street that had blocked the street, and they were all eating, their hot dogs and their pork rinds and their beer, if you can imagine all this, right? So we're walking towards this building, and I'm just there fascinated because I'm already like, oh my God, this is where a lot of the, Saint Germain meetings would happen with Guy Ballard. Uh-huh. So I'm looking at the windows, and all of a sudden, Atona, they start turning to the color of the violet flame. Actually, what happens is it starts getting stronger and stronger, and the violet flame starts coming out from inside the building and out through the windows. And I'm screaming like a little girl, okay? So my friend is right next to me, and I'm saying, look at the windows, look at the windows, look at the windows. And she's going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so we're taking pictures. And mind you, you have to understand that these are two women that are screaming like a bunch of maniacs, and everybody else is just in their world, eating their pork rinds, having their beer. Nobody's watching and seeing this. And and that's happened several times in different days, that when we would show up, the violet flame would come out of exactly the same room where Saint Germain would be in. So anyway, yeah.
And you have photos of that, don't you?
And I have a lot of photos of that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's magical. It's magical. And so yeah, he was definitely communicating that day, wanted us to take pictures of that as proof, as confirmation that this indeed there is a realm of that where these masters do reside, and all these things are absolutely true. So yeah, thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, but I'm going to just push you just a little bit more on that one, because
okay.
I know doubting Thomases exist,
right?
And so I want to just push a little bit more on it. And did you ever think that maybe there was somebody up there that had strobes going on?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, yes. The story does continue. Absolutely. Yes. So doubting Thomas, me, usually, because it's great to get all giddy and happy and, oh my God, it's like, well, look at this, and then I go, wait a minute. It's like, okay, let me find out what is up there, because there's probably somebody up there with, lighting, special lighting, whatever. So I go in, and the building was no longer a hotel. It had been turned into a museum. And so the museum was closed. I couldn't even get into that floor. And but I knocked on the door, and I did see the manager was coming out. They had just closed, and he was walking out. And I go, "Excuse me, hi. I'm just wondering if by any chance if there's anybody on the second floor, if there are any, does anybody live there? What's going on? What kind of business is up there?" He goes, "No, it's actually empty. It's an old theater. It's pretty much it's not operational right now." And I go, well, because it's a theater, are there any like strobing lights up there? Are there any, like, for example, purple lights that might be going off right now? And he goes, no, actually, there's nobody there right now. There's nobody there. It's empty, and there's no purple lights, no red lights, no green lights, no yellow lights. There's no lights. There's nothing up there. And I go, interesting. Okay, well, thank you very much. And so, that was the end of that. So now I'm getting happier, because oh gosh, this is like there's nobody up there. So what is activating this? What is making this happen? And so I go back and take a look at it. It's still as violet and probably more vibrant than even before. And the more we're looking at it, the more it's getting more intense and more intense. The fact that it started off as a very light hue on the panels, on the panes of the glass of the windows of the actual room where Saint Germain would be in, right? And then it became so intense that it came out like a vapor,
like a mist,
like a mist. It would come out from the pane out. And I'm looking around at all the people eating pork rinds, and nobody is seeing this, and we're screaming. My friend and I are screaming, jumping up and down. Oh my God, Saint Germain, the violet flame. Oh my God, and nobody is paying attention. Now they're looking at us like we're nuts, but they don't see anything. So yeah, very, very interesting. And then later on in a different day, a much different time. I even had my daughter come to this trip with me, and so we were up there. We were standing, and my doubting Thomas partner, who doesn't see anything. So we were all looking at this at the windows, and of course, just plain windows. And all of a sudden, we asked. I said, "Please reveal yourself. Please show us the violet flame." And all of a sudden, Atona, the windows go from being plain windows to the violet flame coming out like a mist. Okay? So now this time my friend, she says, okay, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
And excuse me, are you talking about Maddie?
No, I'm talking about my friend Erilyn.
Okay.
My friend Erilyn was the one that told me, you've got to see, I can't remember the name of the town. Something Cloud, McLeod. Okay, that's the name of the town, McLeod, right. All right? So if anybody is going to go to Mount Shasta, you've got to stop there, okay? So anyway, now you see how excited you got me? Now I'm really excited, okay? So anyway, so now we're all standing there, and this whole thing starts happening again in front of everybody, and especially people who have never had an experience before, right? So the mist is coming, this violet flame color and mist is coming right through the panes, and so my friend Erilyn says, I've got to go and find out if there's any way we can get to that top floor, to that second floor. It was actually second floor. So she goes in, the museum is open, and she asked, please, my friends come all the way from Florida, and they really, really want to see that theater upstairs. They want to just take a look at the theater, and it would be such an amazing thing for them. Is there a possibility? And the guy goes, he says, I'm about to go to lunch now. I really don't know if I have time. She goes, look, I'll buy you lunch. And he goes, okay. So he asks for her driver's license. She goes and gets some lunch, comes back, and he gives her the key. So we go upstairs through the back of the building. There was a little staircase going up from the top, and we go in. Nothing. I mean, the whole thing is just a huge room with a stage with green curtains on the windows. And I've got a picture of that too. Nothing. There was nothing there other than the energy. The energy, you can feel it. But yeah, it's just an amazing thing. And then she had a bunch of people that were also into Saint Germain. She told them about it, and that's my friend Erilyn, told them about it. And they all came down as a tour to see this, because they were doing some kind of meditation thing going on up there or something. So they all went and got together, carpooled and went to that hotel, the little motel there, which is now the museum. And they all stood there, and the violet flame wouldn't reveal themselves. They were just pains, and they were there for 10 minutes. And so one of them said, well, let's just go let's do some decrees. Let's do some decrees, and let's call the violet flame forth. And they were, because they were starting to doubt. They go, I don't think this is real. This is not happening. So one of them started saying, doing a decree like violet flame, show yourself, or whatever that was. And all of a sudden, it starts getting violet. And it starts getting stronger and stronger, and then the mist comes right out, and they were all giddy. There were men that were laughing like little girls there, all drooling over themselves. So yeah, so this really does happen, and it happened not only with myself, it happened with people that were with me that were never had an experience before, and then with other people that had experiences. Well, they were into the whole concept, but they never had an experience like that before, and there were a lot of doubting Thomases until the actual violet flame came out, and it was amazing. So anyway, thank you so much for allowing me to take your time and give that story.
Oh, it's a magical story. So while we're up on Mount Shasta.
One of the many magical things that we've experienced there. So, okay, so now you're with Solara, right? And or we were talking.
I'm left. I'm actually I'm down this road in the turnaround.
Yeah.
And I'm on a slight slope, deciding to leave because I don't like this little turnaround that I'm in, and my car dies. It just stops. And it's a brand new Blazer. I mean, it is probably maybe 2 months old at the most. And so I turn it off and start it back up and go to pull out, and it dies again. I did this 2 or 3 times before I realized, this must be the place they want me to be. And so I said out loud, okay, I get it, but I'm on a slope. I'll stay here, but let me get off the slope. My car started right up, and I was able to pull off the slope. I stayed there, and like I said, it was at night now. I got out of the vehicle and looked at the stars Mount Shasta is magnificent to begin with, but because there's no lights on the mountain, the stars are just magnificent. So I enjoyed that for a little bit because it was nippy, and then I got back in my the back of my blazer and into the sleeping bag, and I went to sleep. And I awoke sometime in the middle of the night. Now I'm going to think it's probably around 2 o'clock. I'm guessing this. And if you wake up after you've been to sleep, sometimes you got to go wee wee.
Okay.
So, I got out of the vehicle to take care of some of that, and then I looked up at this magnificent sky again, and I received this communication: get back in the car.
Huh.
Get back in the car. And I look up, and it looks like storm clouds. Monstrous storm clouds happening.
Wow. You still there?
Yes. They were rolling. I don't know if I could even give you a concept of it. I think one time I saw the Ten Commandments and it's some kind of rolling, thunderous.
What? It's almost like a monster, like it's a beast that has took on life and it's about to devour something.
Yeah, but it was devouring the night sky, and it was a dark black rolling like cloud, and it was rapidly moving, and it was consuming the stars. You couldn't, it was covering it. So I jumped right back in the car just like they had asked me to do, and got underneath that into the sleeping bag and under it with my head under it. Now I'm going to bring up something that I hadn't that I had mentioned earlier. I was wearing the lapis that I was given by
Thedra.
By Thedra.
Yeah.
And if anyone is just listening to this, you got to remember that when I was with Thedra in the hotel at that great meeting that we had, she had given me a gift of a ring, and it was the lapis blue gold of the Archangel Michael, and it's that incident that I received this ring. And I didn't have any idea what lapis does. I discovered what lapis does after this incident, and not immediately to the incident, but one shortly after. And that was that the following morning I woke up and I went to reach for my ring because I had developed a habit of touching it. There was something about it that soothed me, and so I would just rub my fingers over it, and when I went to rub my fingers over it, it was gone. And I couldn't understand what had happened. I thought I lost it. Anyway, when I got up to move my front seat back to sit in it, the ring was right there in the middle of the seat.
All right.
Thinking nothing of it, I put the ring back on, and that is pretty much the end of that story, except that you're not going to quite understand it if I don't go into the next part of and link it to some other event that took place.
Okay.
And the other event that took place was I got a phone call at my house, and I had my group of people that were working with me. They were milling around, and I picked up the phone to talk. And there was somebody on the phone who was in a very extremely negative state of mind, and was speaking from that negative state of mind to me. I get off that phone call, and I went I went and used the restroom, and when I came out, again, I had developed that habit of touching for my ring. Well, the ring was on my hand, but the stone was gone.
Oh.
And I was so upset. At that point, I had everyone stop what they were doing and scour the house. Now, this was a 9-room house upstairs. That's how many rooms I had. Wow. We went through that house with a fine-tooth comb. And I thought, oh, God, I flushed it.
Oh, my
So
God.
I called a plumber. A plumber.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay. A plumber. And the plumber to come and take that toilet apart, because I was determined to find that stone. Anyway, I felt really, really bad, so I called Tawita.
Oh.
And I said, Tawita, I have terrible news. And I explained to her what had transpired, that the stone was missing out, and she started to laugh. I did not expect that at all. Okay. And she said to me, that's the lapis blue and gold of Lord Michael. She said, did anything negative happen before you noticed the ring was gone, the stone was gone? And I thought it back, and I remembered the telephone conversation, and I said to her, yes, I had this really weird telephone conversation. And she said, the stone took the negativity away.
Wow.
And she said, it will be returned to you if you need it. Don't bother trying to get your toilet taken apart.
Don't take the toilet apart.
Don't take the toilet apart. Okay.
Wow.
So that night, and this is hours later, I went into my bedroom and I closed the door and I started undressing, and I was about to climb into the bed when I heard.
What did you hear? Like a thump?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, it was like was it a thump? Yeah.
Listen, this is what I heard. Yeah, it was just like something fell and dragged. So I started looking around the room for what that was, and underneath one of the chairs in my bedroom was the lapis stone. I actually heard it fall back from the ethers into my room, and it slid on the floor.
It went, it skid right underneath the chair.
Yeah, I still have that ring. I'm not wearing it right now.
I don't blame you. You might end up...
No.
Well, I mean, you never know. But that's interesting. Wow.
But you have to understand, okay, these incidents are fun incidents. Mm-hmm. This type of a journey, in fact, all of our journeys are really, really magical. If you begin to see how you're being communicated with, and wherever you are on your journey is where you should be right now. And if you're listening to this radio program, this is either to ignite things that will be happening for you, or reignite what used to happen for you that you moved away from, or to give you a totally different perspective. Because where I'm going to go from here, from these incidents, is into a completely different reality with you. I'm going to show you what constructs this reality and how I learned was through a particular incident that I will relate to you after a while, and much, much, much more. And the much, much, much more is what I actually work with people on. And it is experiential. It is not something you're going to read about in a book, although you can get parts of it from reading in books. the part of this journey that I'm talking about is experiential. It's where this world that is constructed out of illusion, the illusion of separation and duality, dissolves. And you begin to walk into what is your divine and true nature. So that's where we're going with these conversations. So I want you to remember there is future information coming.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a clear purpose behind all these stories. There's a reason we're going there.
And for each one of you, there's a reason that you're hearing this. Mm-hmm. It isn't by accident. You will have to discover what that reason is. Hopefully be able to help you.
Yes. All right.
What it is.
So I'm not going to, you're not going to be off the hook in reference to the Solara, because that story is very juicy. I love that story, and yes, because there are a lot of doubting Thomases, and even for those people that are in the spiritual path that have never had experiences before, like what you are, relating here, and experiences like I've had, and so the Solara story is meant for everyone. Okay, so if you don't mind picking up from wherever you left off, and with respect to Solara.
Okay, all right. So audience, Solara was a very dynamic woman. She really was. You can imagine her readership was enormous. That she was able to do, I think to this date, there's at least 6 books out there still that you could get probably on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And, The Legend of Balthasar and Starborn, these are magical, wonderful books. Invoking Your Celestial Guardians was a book that was used by lots and lots and lots of people to begin their journeys. So she was way into her spiritual journey, a lot further than I was. And sometimes she could be a real pain in the ass. I don't know.
Well, the other way. Was she one of those? And I'm just curious. I never met her, but I'm just wondering if was she one of those that might have had a little chip on her shoulder because she kind of had a little bit more spiritual understandings or practice or something.
No, I wouldn't call it a chip. Okay, she was a very gracious woman. Mm-hmm, so, mm-hmm. When I say she was a real pain in the butt. I'm talking now from, and I think you'll get what I'm talking from, but let me do her justice.
Okay.
She was a very gracious woman. She really was. But she was also very opinionated and very certain of her viewpoints.
Gotcha.
And because she was such a powerful woman and had such amazing, following, she tended to be overpowering, and I was not. I think people who know me now would laugh at the thought that there would be anybody that would overpower me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, but that back then. I found it hard to keep my footing with her, and I didn't assert myself. I would listen, but I would steam under the collar, and part of that, and a major part of that, was that I was doing this event, and I was doing this event because I was receiving communication from very specific beings, mm-hmm. and I knew who they were. Mm-hmm. I had met them, and no longer having only telepathic communication, I told you I actually saw them. Okay?
Yep.
And then I was setting up these energy fields, and I would have Ashtar step into the energy field. So I knew what Ashtar looked like. Mm-hmm. I knew, and I also knew his energy. So if the phone rang, if your phone rang right now and you picked it up, you would probably know beforehand that it was me, Ori. In fact, didn't we just have a very funny experience where you started talking to me? Because, yeah, you picked up the phone and then you caught yourself because you were talking to me and you thought, oh, I didn't check it, sir.
Exactly. I said somebody would have probably answered this phone or was calling me, and it's not even Atona. and here I am thinking it's Atona. So I checked and said we checked, and I knew it was, I picked up your energy. I knew. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, there are times, we all have our own energetic signature, and those energetic signatures are understood. And you pick up those because we're all interconnected, and it's on the second attention. It's on the attention that is where we experience the thoughts of others, and some are more sensitive to that, or pick up the energy of others. Pick up the energy of situations. And so, in this particular case, there are energetic signatures. And I knew Ashtar's energetic signature, and there's no way you could fool me.
Right.
Energy. You could put somebody else's body there, but if it wasn't his energetics,
correct,
I would know it.
Correct, and
but
that's
I still would check.
Yeah,
anyway.
and that's some of the things that I usually like to address too, because there's a lot of people stating that they are receiving messages from Ashtar and things like that. And then when you even read the words, when you even pick up that energy, even from the intention of those words, it's not Ashtar. You know what I'm saying? So I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
So what were we talking about?
So you are, we were talking about Solara, that she's a very powerful woman.
Very, very powerful. And, here I am, I'm working with the Ashtar Command. I know that I have communicated with Ashtar himself. I've communicated with Monka. I've also communicated with Valerian at this time, and I have communicated with others who have communicated with Valerian. We were connected through our connections with the other side, as well as Lembal, who I mentioned. We were connected on the other side in activities that were happening, and we discovered those things. Okay, so you can imagine what it was like to constantly hear that there was no Ashtar Command.
So who would say this? Who would say this?
Solara would say this.
Okay,
she would announce this in my presence. So she had a gathering. I'm just going to give one example because I don't want to overdo it and bore people. But one example is she had a gathering after one of her radio talk shows that she was doing, and she was staying with me. She was in Los Angeles doing this, and it drew a lot of people. She had quite an audience. And I went with a gentleman a young man who was the musician for the Angels of Lord Michael are Gathering, the tape that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
I was connected with he and the woman he was involved with who had made that song.
Okay.
And he was with me. He was he was part of what was going to be doing and working on the event. So we went to her gathering, and both of us, he worked very closely with the command as well. And both of us are there, and she basically is talking about how there is no Ashtar Command, and basically in our presence continuing to bash it.
Wow. So she was kind of like correcting that perception of the Ashtar Command and the whole thing.
Right. And so she was basically saying, it has to be coming from somewhere else because there is no Ashtar Command. And
so what was
she actually sat me down at one point and said to me, "You must have a implant."
Okay.
Okay,
So
and that was both. This was prior to that. I didn't even address it, but at this meeting where there were so many people,
wow,
and her talking about that, I had reached my saturation point, and he had reached his saturation point, and so we left it after we stayed in the meeting, but when we left, we both were ticked.
Okay,
and we basically said no more. We're going to address this with the command.
Okay, so time out. Now, she's totally involved in the event right now, right? So she's helping with the Starlink event. She's immersed in that, and she's continuously somehow bashing the Ashtar command. She's negating its existence and saying that they don't exist, and that you must have some kind of implant. Yes. Where you're receiving information that is probably disinformation, probably coming from who knows what, but it's not the Ashtar command because they don't exist. Is that pretty much what's happening?
Yes. Okay. And she, and basically, I'm not combative
Correct.
with her, because the fact of the matter is, I know she's to be a part of this event.
Right.
So for me, it was like the liver looking at the heart and saying, well, the heart doesn't exist, or the heart looking at the liver and saying the liver doesn't exist.
Right.
But I didn't want to have to go up against this popular, very dynamic woman. So we went up into the San Gabriel Mountains, into where his home was, and he and I told you I had a visualization that I was given to call on the command.
Yes.
And so I did the visualization with him right there, and we called on the command, and basically we expressed that we would not continue under these circumstances, that it really needed to be addressed, and that I wasn't going to have to talk with her, and neither was he, but it needed to be taken care of.
So you're asking for help for them to, basically because you have this person that's impeding your, basically working because of the fact that she's so negative. And like I said, she's really not negative, but in this area. In that area, yes, and that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. Huh. And so that's what we did. About a week and a half later, I'm very busy at home, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's Solara. And she goes, "Hi, is this Atona?" Yes. And this is Solara. I have an apology to give you. I said, "Really? What's this all about?" She goes, "Well, I was on a trip, and I was coming through or around Las Vegas, and the command has a base there.
Yeah.
They draw on the energy of the lights and stuff." She said, "I was taken into the Ashtar base, and I met Ashtar."
Okie dokie.
So that ended that. There was never, ever again from her beat that the Ashtar command didn't exist, because she was given the experience that she needed in order to realize that she just didn't. She was not working with them, but that did not mean they weren't connected. She was working in another area. But all of these beings work together in conjunction in ways that are so amazing that when you're here, you can't even conceive that it's even possible. But it is. Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
So,
Very amazing. I mean, and so you never heard a peep out of her again in reference to that.
no. She honored her experience, and she never again ever said that they did not exist, because she had her own experience. And I think at that point she realized how gracious I had been.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that is amazing. Now, you said that, and I'm just going to try to see, because what I try to, I don't know if I heard it right. You said, of course, that the Astral Command has a base in Nevada, and that you said something about the lights. What was it that you said? That they're there because of why?
I believe they draw on the energy.
On the energy of the lights?
Yes. The activities that are going on and stuff.
Interesting. Now, as far as your personal experiences with the command, I'm assuming that they all have been positive, very highly vibrational type of experiences. Am I accurate with that, or?
Well, yes, with the command, if you're talking about my interaction with the command, yes. But on my journey, were all the experiences that I had that were otherworldly positive experiences? No.
Okay.
This is a world of duality, so you have positive and you have negative.
Right.
And so some of my experiences that I had, that I learned and journeyed through, were not. And some of the things that I experienced had to do with people I was working with.
Okay. So
that had experiences, and my coming in contact with their children who had been abducted and things like that.
Okay.
But we really don't want to go into that at this time, do we?
No, it's totally up to you what you want to do. I'm just asking a question, and if it opens up that can of worms where we need to go address that, it's up to you. But I just want people to understand that exactly what you just said, that there are wonderful experiences that are from other realms, and then there are those that are not exactly the positive ones. They're scary. They are,
yes,
yeah.
They're scary experiences, and I did have scary experiences, and but I also learned, and I have a completely different context to understand those experiences from.
Exactly.
And I know that I have 2 listeners that will be listening to this show that know that one of the experiences that I'm talking about had to do with reptilians.
Correct.
And the experience of the reptilians is not, at that time, it was a shocking, scary experience.
Did you know about reptilians at that point, or was it? No. Okay.
No. Never heard of them. Nope. No. It was experiential.
Yeah. So.
And I came in contact with them.
So you had to go in and help these two people. And because...
And I didn't know that that's what I was going to be confronting at all.
Okay.
I didn't know.
So did you receive communication from the command at that point, or from elsewhere that you needed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but this was basically... I'm not going to mention any names.
No, please don't. No.
But they will recognize who I'm talking about. I was awakened, and I was told to be about my father's business. And I never heard those terms before, be about my father's business. And I remember thinking, what what does be about my father's business mean? But, sometimes you hear things that are the way people communicate, just like there are differences in different languages here.
Yes.
And inflections and the choice of words, you'll hear it differently. And I was addressed that way. And I replied back, so what is my father's business?
Right.
And I was told that my two dearest friends at that time needed help, and that I was to assist them with this, and that I was given the names of the two people and told to go and help them, and I did. That morning, that came at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was a distance away that I had to travel. I think it was probably around 10 o'clock in the morning that I walked into where the woman who I was working with, she was in her restaurant, and the restaurant wasn't open yet, so I looked at her and I said, "You're going to have to trust me on this one." I said, "We need to go because I've been told that I need to do some work with you and so-and-so," her husband,
right,
at the time. And so she closed up the restaurant immediately, and we headed to her home. And when we got there, we walked into the house, and to the left was a long hallway, and to the right was as I remember, the living room, and in front of me was the kitchen. I looked down the hallway, and her husband was standing down the hallway, and I could just feel this really weird feeling, and which I was not accustomed to because we were dear friends. But I basically called him to me and said, I have been told to do this. And, so we came and we sat, and they sat on a love seat. They were close to each other, and I sat in front of them on a stool. And I don't know how to explain this other than to tell you I knew what to do. And what I was doing basically was I was letting them know that something was influencing them, and that I was calling that forward now to reveal itself. I didn't know what was going to reveal itself, and I thought it was going to come from Bodhi because... Oh,
it's okay. Don't worry.
You can do without that? Okay, good. I thought it was going to come from the husband. And, but it didn't. When I started doing the work and I started calling forward this being to reveal itself, and in a specific way, this being came forward, and it was a reptilian being, and it moved its head just like a reptilian would move, and believe me, it was enough to scare me. It did. It scared me pretty bad because I didn't expect it, and it came right out of her.
Well, you never had an experience like that before.
I never had anything like that, no.
Right.
Not that I could say.
Right. So here you are, you're accustomed up to that point, dealing with the Illumined Worlds, with beings that radiate light and whatnot, and now you're confronted with these creatures.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And the long and the short of it is that I was also told that he would have to confront his choice level. And I didn't understand what that meant. I really, on a conscious level, had no understanding of what I was being told. So I was just walking through the experience. So you have to understand, this is not all knowledge that I had. I was walking through the experience, and I was learning the experience. But there was something else, something that I knew instinctively, and I believe that it has to do with having access to greater knowledge. Okay? And I knew exactly what to do. I called the being forward, and it was addressed in a very specific manner and told to leave. And it left. It left.
Wow. And that was the one that...
Oh, you felt the energy of it. It almost blew me back.
Wow. No, that was the one that was with the woman or the man?
Yes, the one with the woman, yes. And then I turned to address the one with the husband. And there I said what I was, what I knew to say. And it didn't move.
How lovely.
And I will be quite honest with you. I thought inside my head, oh shit. I can laugh at it now, but I can assure you at that time I was not laughing. And I want to let you know that this is not something that I would wish on anybody to experience in this reality, because it was a very scary thing. Okay? Unless you have the knowledge that I am going to impart later on, okay, which will give you a completely different understanding. You don't want to be messing around in these realms. You don't. Okay? They do exist, but they exist within the illusion. So, and that is something that we're going to go into in great detail. But I have to show you how I experienced it and how real it was and what my experience of it actually was. And it wasn't just this one experience. There were other experiences. I will give you one other after this, and then that's it. Okay. But not now.
Okay.
This experience, what happened was in that moment, after I thought, oh shit, I realized, what they had told me was I would have to confront his choice level. I understood in that moment what was holding that there was the agreement that Bodhi was in with this reptilian.
Right.
And Bodhi was confronted with his choice level, and he paused. And the minute he made the choice, boom!
Wow.
And I do that loud because it blew us.
Wow.
The energy just when it left. And I was going to say the names again. They started weeping and grabbed each other. And the thing that I hadn't told you was their marriage, 7 children later, was almost broken.
Yeah.
Almost broken. And they grabbed each other, and the tears that flowed from all of us through that experience, because oh my God.
Oh, I can imagine. And
oh my God.
What a catharsis at that point. I mean, it's such a release. Yeah, that's an amazing story, really is. Because, and again, you were guided, because you had never done that before.
No, I had never done that before.
Right. But you knew.
And like I said, I don't, that was something that I had to do on other occasions, in other situations back then. So this is a reality that people experience, and if anyone says that it's not true. That there are different levels of comprehension on that.
Right.
the level of comprehension that is in denial is not true. If you are denying that this is even a potential, that's not true.
Right.
You have to know from a completely different perspective what I'm speaking of.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not speaking from a place of rendering the truth that we're living in a polarized world, and because of that, these experiences are being experienced. But there is beyond that.
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm going to say now. There's one other thing I want to say, okay?
Yeah.
I am the godmother of their 8th child.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, they are together and still deeply, deeply in love, and that much wiser.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? And who knows how many of us, right, have a situation like that where our life isn't functioning, and who knows? I mean, that is a possibility that people do have things like that possibly attached, and a lot of it could be also from our choice level, right?
It is.
Yep.
Yeah. But, again, like I said, it's very important. This understanding is so, so, so important that we are talking from within the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in this world.
Sure.
That is constructed out of polarized consciousness.
That's right.
Duality.
That's right.
It is good and evil. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it is wrapped around consciousness. And there is a other, much greater place that you exist in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's what we're going to be going into next time.
That's right.
Exactly. And so that's where we're going to leave off. Okay? This is that point. This is the actual cliffhanger for our next episode, which would be part 3 of walking between realities. With of course, you've all been listening to Atona Arrayas, my dear friend. We've journeyed to many sacred places together and experienced much together. A lot of it with that magic and enchantment that she's talking about, we've both experienced as well. So, I can vouch for a lot of the things that you're saying and those worlds that we're talking about. So I invite all of you to stay tuned for our next episode, which would air, of course, God willing, a week from today. And that will be part 2 of Walking Between Realities. You've been listening to Shattering the Matrix. My name is Ari Kopel. And I look forward to having Atona again and having you all tune in again. So thank you very much for listening tonight. Atona, thank you very much for sharing your wonderful stories with us today. And I look forward to walking into the Illumined Worlds next time around.
That's great, Ari. And just one thing, I do want to mention that the Kamara wisdom is real. And it is from the Illumined Worlds, and I do work with the Kamara wisdom. I am part of what is bringing that to humanity again.
Fantastic. And it's time.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Atona. God bless, and we'll talk soon.
Love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.